Welcome back everybody to PoolieMagTV, the raw, unedited, unscripted NUFC fan channel where everybody's got an opinion and nobody's opinion's wrong. And so in today's episode, we will be discussing some maybe not so shocking transfer news, some departures from Newcastle United, who I would like to see come in and play for Newcastle United in the summer, who I would like to see manage Newcastle United. These are all speculations and rumours, of course. Nothing is set in stone as of yet. But if you like what you see, you like what you hear, you know, share with your friends, share with your family. It's a fledgling Newcastle channel and it's growing ever so slightly bigger every week. We get more and more comments, and I would like, as I always do, I would really like to thank everybody who does take the time to watch the videos, whether it's all the video or some of the video. And I always also appreciate those who comment, because it does help the channel grow. I was looking at, this has got nothing to do with football, but I was looking at Mr. Beast, who's one of the, probably the best known and biggest YouTuber of all time. It took him 5 years to get nigh on over 1,000 subscribers, and then he just blew up. So I'm still in hope. You know, you might see me in 10 years' time and I might be on my private jet. I very much doubt it, but you know, we can live in hope, can't we? Anyway, moving back onto the football content in Newcastle land. So, these rumours are getting more heated, they're getting more consistent, and they're coming out more and more often. And that is Anthony Gordon wanting to leave Newcastle United. Anthony Gordon thinks he's outgrown Newcastle United and feels like he wants a new challenge, apparently. So, my response to that is, see you later, Anthony Gordon. You're not the player you think you are. And I think you're a big-time Charlie. And that's all I think you are. I don't think you turn up when the cameras aren't there. I don't think you turn up when Thomas Tuchel's not there. And I don't think you turn up when the bright lights of the Champions League aren't there. Am I saying you're a bad player? No, I'm not. Because you're far from a bad player. You're a good player. Very good player. Electric pace. And have a really cracking shot on you when you want to. But I think you've got greedy, and I think you've sort of adopted this icon status, on this celebrity status, that you're bigger than Newcastle United and we're just a little bit of a stepping stone for you, so you can go to a bigger club, i.e. Liverpool or Bayern Munich. Now, for me, I don't see you getting anywhere near Bayern Munich's team. Vincent Kompany would not put up with the shit you've pulled over the last couple of seasons. Don't get me wrong, you had a fantastic first season, but other than that, I don't, like I say, you've scored loads of penalties, but other than that, in open play, you've been really poor. You've done well in the Champions League, mainly penalties and mainly goals against teams you should be scoring against. But you're not a centre forward, and I think you've down tools for quite a lot of this season. And you've turned up when the big lights are there, but you've never dug in. You've never clawed for the club. You've never, you know, it's like now you think you're bigger than Newcastle United. You're the number one star at Newcastle United. Well, believe me, you're not. That accolade falls to Bruno Guimaraes, because he you know, whatever he does is for Newcastle United. He's an adopted Geordie. Every part of him bleeds black and white. Now, that's what you want for a Newcastle. I'd rather have somebody who doesn't have half the talent of Anthony Gordon, who turns up 38 games a season, or 38 league games a season, and how many ever cup games you play, but 38 games a season, turns up, gives it 100%, might not have the skill of an Anthony Gordon, might not have the pace of an Anthony Gordon, but actually has pride in playing for Newcastle United. Because Anthony Gordon has got so far up his own arse, he can't even tell which way he's coming from these days, because he's not the player he's been hyped up to be. But then again, you know, the media, who don't have a bad word to say about Eddie Howe, also don't have a bad word to say about Anthony Gordon. So he's one that wants to leave. He's outgrown the club. Well, thank you for what you've done, but see you later. You know, you're not irreplaceable. Nobody's irreplaceable, and I won't be crying if you go. I wouldn't sell you for any less than 80 million. If we get 80 million for you, toodle pip. And I won't shed no tears whether you go to Liverpool, whether you go to Manchester United, whether you go to Arsenal, whether you go to Bayern Munich. I couldn't care less. You're not the player you think you are, and you're not the player I thought you were going to be. So, although you're a very talented young man, and I'm not saying you're not, and there's flashes of brilliance in there. I just don't see him. I just don't see him ever hitting the heights of like world class or anything like that. So if we can get 80 million for Anthony Gordon, I would take it in an heartbeat. What would everybody else do? Would everybody else take? Would people be gutted if Anthony Gordon left, or wouldn't people be that bothered? You know, especially if you got 80 million. So yeah, for me, I'd snatch anybody's hand off, and I'd say, see you later, Anthony. Thank you for what you've done for the club, but you ain't bigger than our club, and we ain't the stepping stones. So see you later. I'm going to replace and use that £80 million wisely. The other person who's looked like he's going to be leaving, and I think has done us dirty and down tools for most of this season, is Sandro Tonali. He come back with a point to prove last season, and he proved that he is a top draw centre mid. There's no denying that he is a top draw centre mid, and even when he's not at his best, he's better than most players in the Premier League. But he just hasn't. He hasn't hit the heights, has he, this season? He just hasn't. He hasn't wanted to. You can tell he hasn't. There's been certain games like Villa in the cup when he scored a couple, and he looked like he was come on. But that looked more like into the moment stuff than actual passion for Newcastle United. He hasn't really showed much passion for us this season. Not like he did last season. Especially after them comments in October where he said, I'm happy here now, but I don't see my future being here. Well, that was just a nail in his coffin then, wasn't it, really? And he hasn't been in the same place since. He's had a few games where he's come out and he's looked like he's wanted to try. Pardon me. Where he's wanted to try and it looks like he's wanted to actually do something for us. But most of the time he just saunters around. You watch him for Italy and it's night and day. He plays for Italy like he played for us last season, and he played for AC Milan and things like that. So, Sandro Tonali. Oh, I've got a bit of wind today, I do apologise. Sandro Tonali, another one with an £80 million price tag, and I'd sell him for 80 million too. We know we need reinvestment, we need to change this squad, it needs freshening up, and we don't want people who don't want to be here. I don't care how talented you are, I don't care how good you are. If you do not want to be at Newcastle United, see you later. There's plenty of players that would love to join Newcastle United. They really would. So I honestly believe them two will go in the summer. I don't think they'll be the only two to go. I know obviously there's a few of the lesser known players, but I don't think they'll be the only two superstar players to go. I think a couple more will go, if I'm honest. I think Valdemar will leave. I think Johan Wissel will go out on loan somewhere. I'd get shot of him anyway. I can see Harvey Barnes, unless he's guaranteed a start, I can see him going. I can see this being a little bit of a mass exodus. I'm quite excited to see where it ends up in the summer, because we need a lot of players. We need a lot of players, and there's a lot of good players. And I'd love Ismail Assar from Crystal Palace. I just think he has everything that a winger needs: pace, direction, strength, good shot, good pass. He is the one person that I would really want to put a lot of money into, and one person who I think we could really get, because Palace look like they'll probably go on to win the Conference League, but Glasner's gone, and Palace aren't a big club. Let's face it, they can't pay the wages we can pay, and they're not a bigger club than us. I honestly believe I'd love Ismail Assar. I really would. And I'd love somebody like a Leon Goretzka from Bayern Munich. Because Goretzka doesn't get his game every week for Bayern Munich. And I think, I'm not saying we can cherry pick who the hell we want. This is why I'm not saying go out and get Lamine Yamal and all that. You know, because it's not happening, is it? I'm not stupid. But Goretzka, although he plays for Bayern Munich, isn't getting his game week in, week out for Bayern Munich like Kimmich and that does. I think Leon Goretzka and Ismail Assar would be two fantastic signings for Newcastle. I really do. I just do. And I think Murillo from Nottingham Forest as a centre-back, I really like him. I think he's a quality centre-back. I really do. I wouldn't have anybody from Spurs if they go down or stay up. But Wolves have a couple of alright players who you can maybe cherry pick. I know they've been relegated, but every relegated team always has one or two players that you think, oh yeah, they're not too bad. But I think him from Forest, Murillo, I think I'd love Ismail Assar, and like I say, Leon Goretzka, I think would be fantastic. And then coming into the last part of the video, anyway, what would people be bothered about Sandro Tonali? I'll go back to that. I'm a little bit tired, so I'm a little bit jogging all over the place. So I apologise. It's a little bit of a roller coaster this video, but just bear with me. You know what? You know my style of video. It's just free flowing. Would anybody be bothered if Sandro Tonali left? Do you think he's done his dirty? Yeah, I do a little bit. Because we stood by him, haven't we? And I know he come back at the December time last season, really, when he started getting into the team, and he turned us around, and he was a catalyst for the Carabao Cup. But it seems like a lot of players have thought, right, I've done my bit for yous now. I've got yous back into the Champions League. I've got yous the Carabao Cup, and it seems like a lot of players have just sort of sensed that that's it, and now they can move on. And we don't need players like that. Them three players who I think, you know, who I would have, you know, I would James Trafford and all. I would love to have James Trafford. I think he'd be a really good signing. They're just 4 players off the top of my head who I think would improve our squad. John McGinn from Aston Villa. I'd love John McGinn, but I don't think he'd leave Aston Villa to come to Newcastle. But I'm just freestyling some names who I would love to see at Newcastle. Probably won't get any of the ones who I've mentioned. I haven't really looked at any transfer news because I don't really want to. It's not the end of the season yet. The World Cup's not over. So, but I had to bring the Gordon and the Tonali rumour because that's what's heating up a little bit, and people are talking about it, and both of them don't seem like they want to be here, let's face it. So I can see both of them leaving, but I won't be sad to see either of them leave. If we can get 150, 160 million combined for them to total pip for me. And just finally, there's another rumour going about that the PIF want the special one, Jose Mourinho. People seem to think that this man is a busted flush, he's done, he's this and that. Look what he's doing for Benfica, unbeaten in the league. And went on a crazy ride in the Champions League with them. This guy is not a busted flush, and this guy doesn't play boring football if he doesn't have a boring team. Believe me, he doesn't. And he will attract big names. And if you give him the right amount of money to spend, I'm not saying he's the long-term answer. But what I'm trying to say is, 18 months under Jose, get your Champions League football. It gets your big name players. It builds your revenue. Commercially, people worldwide will start to watch Newcastle United, whether they look because they love Jose Mourinho, whether they hate Jose Mourinho, or they're intrigued by him. A lot more eyes will be on Newcastle United if Jose Mourinho is the manager. And believe me, he wouldn't put up with the shit Eddie Howe's put up with this season. 26 major honours in his career. He loves that us against them type of club, and that's what we are. We're the us against them type of club. He loves that. He thrives in that environment. He was Bobby Robson's right-hand man. He loves Bobby Robson. He was like a father to Jose Mourinho. He loves Newcastle. He always talks highly of Newcastle and St James's Park. I think he would fit like a glove. Now, would it be the most entertaining football? I'm not saying it would be, but what would you rather have? Are we entertaining now? No, we're not. We're absolutely dreadful to watch. Would he do any worse? No, he wouldn't. And you know for a fact he wouldn't. You will always get the odd one. He didn't. Now, look, he got sacked at Tottenham and got them to a Carabao Cup final. Right? He won the league and the Carabao Cup again at Chelsea when he come back. He won 2 trophies and got Manchester United second. He won the Conference League with Roma when Roma don't win anything. He finished second, closely second at Fenerbahce to a Galatasaray who spend loads of money, and now he's unbeaten in the league and got Benfica to the knockout stages of the Champions League. So, how's this guy a busted flush? He's one of the greatest managers of all time. Is he the manager that he was at the first time round at Chelsea or Inter Milan? No, he's not. But he's still a hell of a lot better than most of them, and he's an elite manager who knows his way around the Premier League. He knows his way around big players. He knows how to attract big players, but he doesn't take no bullshit. He doesn't allow players to dictate to him. And he loves, like I say, he loves that us against them type of club. Like that middle tier type club, not an elite club, because he likes to use the club as the victim. You know, like when Chelsea first come, it was because they had all the money that everybody were picking on Chelsea, little old Chelsea. You know, he loved Roma, Inter Milan when they're not an elite league club. You know, it's when he went to Man U and the likes of and Chelsea in the second time when Chelsea had grown in stature, and obviously Real Madrid, he struggles a little bit. But when them he can play that like us against them, you know, and galvanise clubs, I just think he'd fit like a glove for us. So yeah, that's just my opinion. I've named a couple of players that I would like to see, about 4 or 5 players that I'd like to see come to Newcastle, who I think we realistically could get. I'd love to see Jose Mourinho at Newcastle. And like I say, if I'd snatch your hands off, but if we could get between 145 and 160 million for Sandro, Tonali and Anthony Gordon, and just try and rebuild this squad. Exciting times ahead, I think. But like I say, hit like, hit subscribe, comment down below. Do you agree with my opinions? Do you think I'm way off? Would you be upset if them 2 left? Who do you think we should get? Who do you think our new manager will be if Eddie Howe does go? Do you think there'll be a summer exodus? Or do you think it'll start petering off and we'll start keeping some players? Anyway, hit like, hit subscribe and comment down below. And as I always say, keep it black and white and keep it PoolieMagTV. Over and out, folks.